Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi everybody, I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and once again we'd like to thank you for joining us and welcome to the Father Joe Grimaldi Podcast. The Father Joe Podcast, proudly supported by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln on 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph, home of the Star treatment. I want to talk to you about Lincoln Copilot 360, the next generation of safety on the road. It's a package of Lincoln's 5 most popular driver assist technologies. It's available in all 2020 models. It's a sophisticated extra set of eyes to help you keep your family secure on the road ahead. Now, this includes a 360-degree camera, active park assist plus, evasive steering assist, reverse brake assist, and adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist, which includes stop and go and lane centering as well as speed sign recognition. This upgrade from the standard Lincoln Copilot 360 helps keep your journey seamless and stress-free. Stress-free driving, that's another reason to visit Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln on 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph. It's the home of the Star treatment. Well, time flies when you're having a good time, doesn't it? Do you notice how fast time is going by? Why is it when we get older, Joe, that time seems to fly by?
Christmas was just yesterday.
You know what? It's funny you would say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. Reminds me of an old Meatloaf song. Meatloaf was a rock and roll artist, by the way. Great name. Great voice, too. Anyway, I was thinking about that very thing today, that it seems like we were just literally taking down the Christmas tree and all of the various lights and all of the, all of the treatments that are up for Christmas, and all of a sudden, boom, here we come. Lent, it starts on February 26th, Tuesday, which we call Fat Tuesday here in Detroit, because we are infamous or famous, I prefer the latter, for the Polish punchki. We're big fans of the Polish punchki, aren't we?
Sure are. Those are delicious.
I don't know if everyone around the world realizes that a punchki is probably a 4 to 10 pound wing, jelly or custard cream filled, then thoroughly painted with some sort of frosting glaze. I think they're usually about 12 to 1400 calories.
Great calories.
They are so darn good that the people line up at the various bakeries. I have my favorite in Hamtramck, Michigan, of course, which was at one time just 100% a Polish community. We call it Fat Tuesday. The beginning Mardi Gras is going on. It's the day of excess, more or less, before we head for Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent, and 40 days. I wanted to talk to you about a few things that I happened to look up, and I wanted to go through them again. How important is it truly now for you and I, and for those people listening, to do some sort of a Lenten sacrifice? Now, let me just say this as well, because in the past we have said, instead of giving up, let's give more, meaning do something more that you wouldn't normally do, as opposed to somewhat punishing yourself by giving up chocolate or going on the computer, Facebook, social media, whatever the case may be. Instead of doing something like that, do something for the community, something like that. But at the same point, let's not take away from the people that like to do something, give up something for Lent. It's an important part of the 40 days, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay. Do you normally give something up for Lent?
At times I do, at times I don't.
Okay. Well, truth be told, same here. For example, there was a time when people would give up drinking, or a lot of people would give up sweets. I would find impossible to do. But do you recommend people do some sort of fast, Father Joe Grimaldi?
Lent is a time to remind us that we have to have discipline in our lives. And a good way to remind us about discipline is going out of your way to do something that you don't ordinarily do, that's charitable, that's good for other people, or if it's easier for you to give up steaks, to give up drinking. The whole point of it, though, is to build up discipline in our lives. I think this way that we're going to experience discipline in our moral life is to do discipline in the physical life.
Mm-hmm.
When we speak about Mardi Gras, which is a French term, which means Fat Tuesday, the custom was because of the Carnivale, which was to feast on all of the foods that you could not have after Ash Wednesday, so that we could get rid of those foods. They wouldn't stay with us all the time, especially what nowadays the fancy restaurants are calling the charcuterie, which is basically the dried sausages and stuff like that.
Oh,
we get rid of all of that stuff. We do that by feasting on that Tuesday with everything you could possibly imagine. We're overdoing, as it were, and if you were to go to New Orleans, you would get a real taste of the Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday. Now, that's to get rid of all of that so that we could start the next day on a clean slate where we've given up whatever it is. But we don't give up stuff just so that we can start a diet. If that's a result of what we do because of discipline, that's great. But the motive for giving up is the discipline in our lives, that we could have a better discipline in saying our prayers, in our relationship with the Lord, and trying to live a more ethical, moral life, and so on. Because it takes that discipline to carry it out in action.
It's also a time for devotion.
Definitely.
It seems to me that the emphasis on the word devotion, if you spend any time doing any just sort of simple Google and you type in Lenten season, the word devotion comes up a lot behind fasting. If you're talking about Lent for dummies, if some person were to say, I have no clue, what do you guys mean by Lent? Well, Lent's, okay, this is going to take me a couple of minutes to explain, Larry, but here's how it works, all right? A lot of people will fast. A lot of people still like to fast on Fridays, and they still, although Pope Paul VI, back in 1966, said that we no longer have to fast. You only have to fast on Good Friday and Ash Wednesday. You don't want to get into the weeds like that. But basically, the things that come up are devotions, perhaps some tithing, that is to give a little extra at church, and also fasting. Those seem to be the three things that come up. Devotion can be whatever you want it to be, basically. It could be saying the rosary every day or whatever the case may be. I don't mean to speak for you, but am I on the right track here?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. When you say fast and abstinence is for Ash Wednesday and Good Friday only. Fast and abstinence. Fasting, of course, means you don't eat as much as usual. Abstinence is we're not going to have any meats. And so, for us, would be Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and Good Friday. Now, the Holy Father also asks everyone to at least not have meats on Friday either during Lent. And so that the churches here in Michigan or Florida, for that matter, what happens is we are still obliged to have meatless Fridays. Now, if there is a good reason, usually you would ask the pastor and he would probably dispense you from that obligation. You're celebrating your 50th anniversary and you really want to have a steak dinner, and we can do that because it's not that kind of an obligation where it's a matter of sin. It's a matter of a strong encouragement not to eat meats. It's a way of sacrifice, basically, not to eat meats on Fridays. Can that ever be dispensed with? As I mentioned, it can be at times. But it should not be treated lightly. In other words, if Friday comes along and you want to have a hamburger, you say no to yourself. We need that discipline to say no. Granted, sometimes having fish is a lot more expensive than having a hamburger. But the point of it is that it reminds us that we're doing something that is good for the soul, as it were. Huh?
Yep.
Discipline is not a bad thing, and that's where we learn inner control of our bodies if we can at least practice the discipline of fasting or something of that sort. Devotion. You spoke about devotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's no question that there's an increase of attention to the spiritual life. And along with that comes devotion. Devotion are private exercises or prayers that an individual enjoys and likes. And so they do practice the devotions more intently during the Lenten season. There's no obligation to do so, but I think it comes along with the idea that, hey, it's Lent. I should be doing something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, more spiritual life, and therefore I'm going to practice some devotion, say the rosary every day,
Mm-hmm.
say a prayer to St. Jude on a regular basis.
A lot of people go to Mass every day.
There's no question of that. I mean, that's another way of expressing their spiritual life. I want to get back a moment, though, to the fasting and abstinence.
Yeah.
Because when you're over a certain age or under a certain age, you're not obliged to fast. So, for example, someone who has not reached the age of reason yet, well, there's no reason for them to fast. You know, someone who's 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age.
Yeah.
And then for someone who is well into their 70s and 80s, again, it might not be a good thing for them to fast. If they can support it, why not? But the abstinence applies to everyone. The abstinence applies to people that are healthy, people who are overaged or underaged, but they are obliged to abstinence and the fasting. Fasting is a less amount of food,
Okay.
basically.
And the other thing that we can always count on, and we'll see it as of, I guarantee you, starting on the 26th, all of the fast food restaurants start heavily pushing their fish sandwiches. I always get the biggest
That's
kick.
very noticeable, yeah.
You'll notice at Burger King, McDonald's, and I believe that if they could, and I'm surprised the Colonel hasn't figured out yet how to make some sort of a fish sandwich that I'm not aware of. But that's when you really see that, and you see virtually every restaurant up and down any road that serves food will have on their chalkboard or their storyboards or whatever their menus are that you can see from outside. I guarantee you will see the seafood platter somewhere on that board.
And the price goes up a little bit, too. I know.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that works? I mean, of all things, a chance, and see, that's the curious part. Here it is, one of the holiest seasons of the year, and people decide, you know what I like about Lent? We can raise the prices a little bit on fish. I like where you're going with this. Well, that's a bad thing, folks. That is a bad thing. So, getting back to fast and abstinence, only Ash Wednesday and only Good Friday, and like I said, that was changed. I happened to read this morning by Pope Paul VI in 1966. It just sticks out in my brain, so good that I remembered it. I was going to ask you this. Do some people take Lent a little too seriously?
If they do, I don't know of any.
Okay. All right. Well,
I would like to ask you about that. Among your friends, do you notice that at all?
I do. Here's what I noticed when
What are his examples of taking it too seriously?
Oh, that would be... All right, I'm going to stop drinking. I will be trying to fast a little bit each and every day. I'm going to skip breakfast for the entire Lenten season. I'm going to walk a mile while doing some sort of devotion. A total deprivation month, or 40 days. But they do it every year religiously, no pun intended. So good for them. But it starts with Ash Wednesday, proudly wearing the ashes all day. But then I have other friends, it's like, well, I'll go to Mass on Sunday. Yeah, that's it. And some don't do that. Does that make sense?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. See, I like to get back to the motivation, though. What happens is this. It's a nice time of the year because it's spring.
It is.
And so we're getting ready for the beauty of summer and so on and so forth.
Well, it isn't.
So,
where you are right now and when you get back, hopefully. But I mean, for us here, March can be pretty grumpy months in terms of cold temperatures and maybe some snow. But
well, I mean, generally
yeah,
speaking, cleaning up for spring.
I get it. I know where you're going with that. But
I
either,
mean, it does.
yeah, but
So it's a matter of getting ready for the beauty of flowers and so on and so forth. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this.
well, no, I wanted to finish one thing because I'm glad you asked me about
Oh,
my
I'm
friends.
sorry.
No. I just wanted to finish this point because I just thought of it again. You kind of surprised me when you asked me what are my friends doing, and I will say that I can't speak for all because a lot of them quietly practice whatever they're doing. I have friends that are just very quiet about what they do, but I know that they're involved and they're committed. Okay, I know that for a fact. Now, if I were to ask somebody, "Hey, do you quit drinking for Lent?" Yeah, I do, but never says, "Yeah, it's Lent, I'm not drinking." "Hey, it's Lent, I'm not drinking." Like, okay, I got it. No braggadocio. But I do have a lot of friends that, yes, absolutely take Lent very, very seriously, and others that are casual but into it, and others who are like, "Oh, it's Lent."
I'm glad to hear that because very often my experience anyway is people love the idea of Lent because, wow, I've been meaning to cut back because the weight is growing and growing on me. This is a good time to just give up a meal and lose a few pounds. Or, drinking could be very problematic. I'm going to really stop drinking. And Lent is a good time to do it because people are doing it for religious motives, but they don't say that. They say, well, this is a good time to do it, and so I'm giving up drinking for Lent. And then all of the other things, giving up chocolate for Lent because let's put it on, I've been eating too much of that, so I really have to stop.
Guilty,
So
Your
what
Honor.
I'm saying is motivation has a lot to do with whether or not we're doing things for a religious reason during Lent, or actually it's a convenient time to lose a few pounds, to get me walking more, to doing all of those good things that we're supposed to be doing anyway.
But I'm supposed to be doing all of those things in concert with some sort of a devotion going through my head at the same time, right?
If that's the case.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know.
I don't
that.
want people to just take advantage of Lent and say, "This is my reason to."
No, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to take it. You're not supposed to do that. But they do, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not asking me to judge on somebody, but if you listen to conversations, I have to stop smoking. This is really getting to me. Next week is a good opportunity. I am stopping as of next Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I just think the association, Lent gives you the opportunity to do, and that's not a bad thing. It's like we do what we have to do because other people are doing it for religious reasons. So they'll think I'm doing it for religious reasons. And here I am trying to lose a few pounds or stop smoking, whatever the case might be.
Good time to see the doctor. Good time to have a little blood work. I haven't had much red meat. I haven't been drinking. I've been laying off the ice cream. So finally getting back to, as we wrap up Lent, there will be a noticeable change within the actual church starting on Ash Wednesday.
There's no question about that. It's interesting how those who do the decorations very cleverly put out things that automatically, after a month, start to turn green instead of the wood that they put out on Ash Wednesday. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they use the decorations that give you the Spartan atmosphere on Ash Wednesday, but a week later there's a little green bud somehow. They were able to get a different kind of branch, and 2 weeks later there's several green buds, and then it becomes full bloom on Easter Sunday.
And finally, last year's palms from Palm Sunday are this year's ashes.
Yes.
Correct.
Oh, no,
okay.
they are. I mean, yes and no. I mean, those are complicated questions, and they're good questions, but they're complicated. Yes, that's the intention. However, most people do not bring their palms back to church so that they can become the ashes. So what happens is we're living in an age where you can automatically make a phone call and get ashes to come in, and those are blessed, and that's what's used. Because if you're going to try to get the ashes from last year's branches, well, you might have to wait 10 years because
right.
people, they don't bring back the palms.
Right. When would you technically bring back the palms?
Anytime.
Anytime during the year?
Yeah.
And just give them to the church. My grandmother always would put the palms behind the picture of the Sacred Heart.
You're not the only one. A lot of people would do that.
So maybe a couple of weeks earlier, you would take those back to the church and say, here you go for the ashes on Father.
Sure.
Okay. Learned a lot today. Even we've done a few things on Lent, but I learned even more today.
Well, we had fasting and abstinence. That's a big one. Abstinence has to do with the lack of meat, and then abstaining from something. Huh?
Right. We learned that.
Whereas fasting happens to be less food. But go ahead.
We also learned that they like to raise the prices of fish this time of year. And
That's right.
And that makes me angry.
Can you imagine on Good Friday what they charge?
Don't get me angry during Lent. I get angry enough just staying away from sweets. So we will talk to you next week, everybody, on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I'm Ken Calvert. See you next week.
I look forward to it. Thank you. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.